Hi, I'm Tarrant.
And I'm Stella, and this is Meeple University How to Play Werewolf.
This video and explanation are a little bit different to most of our how to play videos. Firstly, Werewolf is a very old and very general and a very widely played game. It's existed for many decades, also known by the name Mafia, and there are many variations on how to play the game. So in this video, we will take you through the general rules which are present in all variations of the game, but under the understanding that you'll need to clarify all of the finer points of your gameplay with your group or the moderator hosting your game.
We'll also be using footage that we took from Local Taphouse in Kilda, which is a monthly meeting for Werewolf Melbourne, because we stay in Melbourne here, in 2018. We thank our friends for appearing in our video and the footage. The game was hosted by Douds, who's also host here in Melbourne for Werewolf games. So check that out as well from werewolfmelbourne.com.
Finally, as you'll see through this video, much of the flavour which is introduced to the game of Werewolf comes through the variable role cards which players may be dealt. We won't be covering all of the role cards in this video, but you can click on the link in the description below to our separate video in which we cover all of the roles that are available in Bezier Games' Ultimate Werewolf Deluxe Edition.
Now, let's learn how to play.
Werewolf is a social deduction and party game with a great deal of flexibility in its application. It plays a minimum of 5 players and can theoretically play any number, although 20 to 25 is probably the maximum comfortable number. It can be played as a deeply strategic social deduction exercise or as a light-hearted storytelling game or anything in between, depending upon whether your group of players is more interested in the journey or the destination. The game must be led by a moderator. In a simple game with no special roles, the moderator is simply a storyteller, and passing the storytelling from player to player during the game is acceptable. But in a game involving special roles, the moderator must be a single player who keeps track of rules and progress, engages in the storytelling, and designs the special rules and roles which will be included in a given game. In this video, we're going to focus on larger games involving many role cards. We'll mention a few of the role cards specifically through the video where they're useful for examples, but this will not be an exhaustive list of the rules relating to these roles in the game. At its core, the game is a social deduction game between 2 randomly assigned teams, the werewolves and the villagers. The werewolves are substantially smaller in number than the villagers, usually by about a 1:5 ratio, but have the distinct advantage that they know who the other werewolves are, while the villagers do not. The game then alternates between day phases and night phases. In the night phase, the werewolves choose a villager to eliminate from the game, and in the day phase, the villagers, alongside the werewolves who are posing as villagers, vote on a player to eliminate from the game in the hopes of eliminating a werewolf. The last team with any players remaining on it wins the game, with both the surviving and eliminated players from that team all sharing in a common victory. To set up the game, the moderator identifies the number of players in the game and chooses which roles will be used, as well as any special rules that he or she wishes to include. A skilled moderator should choose roles which will make a well-balanced game. Typically, the villagers will outnumber the werewolves by approximately 5 to 1. The moderator will not necessarily reveal the roles in the game, nor even how many werewolves are in the game if he or she does not wish to do so. All players should sit in a circle and should not change position during the game, and this is necessary because certain role cards are influenced by the adjacency of players. For a perfect game, all players should sit on separate chairs so that they will not be able to feel the telltale movements by their neighbours during the game, and players should also avoid wearing noisy clothing, as a rustling jacket or clanking bracelets during key moments of the game could reveal your identity. Then, the moderator deals 1 card to each player and records each player's role in his or her notes. The secrecy of the role cards is critical to the success of the game, and as such, players receiving their cards must not show their card to any other player, and should refrain from asking questions which makes their role card obvious. An anonymous opportunity to ask these questions will come later. If a role card is revealed by any player at this stage, it is generally necessary to regather all of the cards and deal again. The game is then played over the following phases. First, an initial night phase in which some players learn information about others' identities, and this will be driven by their role cards. Then, there are alternating day phases and night phases. In the day phase, all players will discuss who they believe to be werewolves and may vote on a player to eliminate them from the game. And in the night phase, the werewolves will choose a villager to eliminate from the game. This sequence continues until the end of the game is triggered. In the initial night phase, the moderator will tell all players to close their eyes. At this point, the moderator should ask any players who are unsure of the details of their roles to raise their hands silently, and this gives the moderator the opportunity to clarify questions quietly and anonymously away from the main group. Then, the moderator will ask the werewolves to open their eyes. Werewolves will look around the circle to identify each other, then close their eyes again. Other roles may be asked to open their eyes to gain information in this phase as well. For example, the Masons, who are villager roles who know each other's identities, will be asked to open their eyes to see each other. Some other roles may be asked to open their eyes and make a choice which affects the rest of the game. For example, the Cupid role chooses two players to fall in love, linking their destinies in the game, and Cupid opens his or her eyes upon the request of the moderator in the initial night phase to make this choice. Follow your moderator's instructions during this phase. All communication and choices must be made silently, and the moderator should do his or her best to confirm all choices visually. After the initial night phase is complete, the game proceeds to the first day phase, and the moderator will instruct all players to open their eyes. Thematically, the moderator will usually explain that he or she has been killed by werewolves in the night, giving the players an incentive to go and find those werewolves. Each day phase proceeds in the same way. Players, both the villagers and the werewolves posing as villagers, may openly discuss who they believe to be a werewolf, with the ultimate aim being to find the werewolves and then vote to execute them. Players may ask questions, lie, cast shade, go on long and irrelevant tangents in any way they see fit during the day phase discussions, with only two key rules. Players may never show each other their cards, and may never give specific information which would positively identify a card, such as describing the picture on it. During the day phase, players may nominate each other for execution. To nominate, a player must clearly state, "I nominate this player," and then for the nomination to be confirmed, a different player must clearly state, "I second that player's nomination." Once there has been a nomination and a second, the nomination is accepted and that player will be put up for vote. When 4 or fewer players remain in the game, only a nomination and not a second is required. Each player may make only a single nomination and a single second in each day phase. The moderator should listen to all conversations and record any nominations and seconds as they happen, as it is the moderator who ultimately determines who was nominated and who is put up for the vote. Then, the vote for execution proceeds, and there are many different variations in the rules of Werewolf for how this might occur. In the game that you're watching behind this video, the moderator calls for a vote after 2 separate players have been nominated and seconded. Each player, in the order that he or she was nominated, has the opportunity to plead innocence. Then, again in the order that he or she was nominated, the players are put to the vote. All players, except for the player presently being voted upon, but including the other player up for nomination on that day, vote simultaneously with a thumbs up to save and a thumbs down to execute. If there is a clear majority of votes to execute, then the voting is over and the player is eliminated, and the second nominee is spared the vote. If there is a clear majority to save or the vote is a tie, then players vote on the second nominee. And once again, if there is a clear majority of votes to execute, that player is eliminated. And if there is a clear majority to save or a tie, then that player remains in the game and the voting is over. There are many other ways that the voting can occur. Players could be put to a vote after a single nomination and second has been made, and then return to discussions after an unsuccessful vote. Or two players could be put up for a vote, and then the one which earns more votes is automatically executed, even without a majority. And there are many other variations, and this is probably the part of the game which has the most different variations. And your moderator will explain exactly which rules you are using during your game. Once the player is executed, he or she is eliminated from the game. There are 3 different ways to deal with an elimination: card reveal, team reveal, or no reveal. When playing with card reveal, the eliminated player shows his or her role card upon elimination, meaning that all players will know the roles that have been eliminated, and this does potentially entrap other players in a previously told lie. In team reveal, the moderator will reveal whether the eliminated player was a villager or a werewolf, but will not reveal any specifics about the roles. Thematically, the player changes into wolf form while dying. In the no reveal variant, no information is revealed about the eliminated player at all. When playing team reveal or no reveal, the eliminated player must not show his or her card to any player after elimination and before the end of the game. An eliminated player may leave the circle to join another game, or may remain to watch the rest of this game. The eliminated player is no longer considered to be present for the purposes of adjacency, and must abide by the golden rule that dead people can't talk. After a successful execution, the day phase will end and the game will proceed straight to the next night phase. In most variants, the option will also exist for there to be no execution during a day phase. For example, under Melbourne Werewolf rules, a day phase ends if the 2 votes for execution are both unsuccessful. Ultimately, your moderator will call an end to the day phase at his or her leisure, usually after a certain number of unsuccessful votes or after a time limit. And it's not uncommon for day phases early in the game to end without an execution. In the night phase, the moderator instructs all players to close their eyes. Then the moderator will ask the werewolves to open their eyes and choose a player to eliminate. The werewolves will need to communicate silently to identify a target, and the moderator should confirm the target visually. The werewolves will then close their eyes. Then, any villagers who have night phase roles will be sequentially asked to open their eyes and enact their roles. For example, the seer has the ability to check one person during each night phase to see whether or not that player is a werewolf. The moderator will ask the seer to open his or her eyes and choose a player. Then the moderator will consult his or her list of roles that was prepared during setup and will tell the seer the answer using a visual clue, usually using a V or a W with his or her fingers. In a game where eliminations follow the team reveal or no reveal rules, the moderator will continue to call on night phase roles even after they've been eliminated to avoid giving away information to players about which roles remain. In this circumstance, the moderator simply calls on the role and pretends that the player is still in the game and is making a choice. The same rules apply for roles with a once per game effect. The moderator will continue to ask that player whether or not he or she wishes to use that once per game effect, even if it's already been used, so as not to reveal when it has been used. The moderator may even choose to call on roles in the night phase which aren't even in the game, just to cause confusion. The moderator may also introduce plot twists during night phases as he or she sees fit, provided they can be conveyed silently. In the footage you can see here, the villagers can verbally hear Dave telling the werewolves to eliminate one player, but he's visually instructing the werewolves to eliminate 2 players. After all night phase roles have been called upon, many moderators will do a final step in which they walk around, tapping players on the knee or shoulder to indicate what has happened during the night. Usually this will simply involve telling players when they're about to be eliminated, so it's not really a necessary step. However, it provides a non-suspicious opportunity for the moderator to convey other information without alerting the rest of the players that something unusual has happened, such as if a player has been turned into a werewolf during the night. Then, the moderator tells all players to open their eyes and then explains which players were killed during the night phase. This may simply be the player targeted by the werewolves, or there may be some others. Depending on your moderator, he or she may explain the manner in which each player died, or this may be left a mystery. Additionally, in cases where no player has died, for example, if the player targeted by the werewolves was saved by a player with a protective power, such as the bodyguard, then the moderator will generally not explain why that player was saved. So do be on the lookout for confused werewolves whenever this happens. The rules related to role reveal and eliminated players are the same for night phase eliminations as day phase eliminations. Play then proceeds to the next day phase. The game ends immediately in victory for the villagers' team when there are no werewolves left in the game. All players on the villagers' team, both alive and dead, are considered to have won the game. Note that on occasion there may be roles such as the minion or sorceress who are villagers by species but who are playing on the werewolves' team. These players do not need to be eliminated for a villagers' team victory. Only players who are werewolves by species need to be eliminated. There are two different ways that the werewolves victory condition can be played, and your moderator should clarify which one will be in use. In the first, the game ends in a werewolf victory once there are no villagers left in the village. In the second, and these are the rules played by Melbourne Werewolf, the werewolves win as soon as there are as many werewolves remaining as there are villagers, as this thematically gives them the numbers to overrun the village. Once again, all players on the werewolf team, both alive and dead, are considered to have won the game. The distinction between these two werewolf victory conditions is subtle, but it is important. In a basic game with no special roles, these two end conditions are identical, as the point at which the numbers are even coincides with the point at which it becomes mathematically impossible for the villagers to secure victory. However, this is not necessarily true with more advanced roles, as there are roles like the Witch, which is a villager with the once per game power to eliminate a player during the night phase, and this sort of power could potentially tip the numbers back in the villager's favour after the threshold is met. There are also some roles, such as the Lone Wolf, which have a personal win condition which that player must be meeting at the moment the game ends. So for the purposes of that player, it's important to know whether the game ends at the point of overrun or if it will be played to its conclusion with all villagers eliminated. As such, you should confirm with your moderator prior to beginning the game how the end of the game will be triggered in a werewolf victory. There are some other different win conditions associated with specific roles or sub-teams in the game, and we'll cover all of these in our roles video.
And that's how to play Ultimate Werewolf. We hope that you enjoyed the video, and we hope that you enjoy lying to your friends playing this game.
Now, we have 3 other videos on the topic of werewolf that you might like to look at, and the links to them all are in the description for this video. We have one where we go through all of the roles that are present in this version of the game of Werewolf. We have a 1-round playthrough, which again uses footage from the St Kilda Taphouse meetup. And in one of the episodes of Stella's Tabletop Diary vlog, we have Dave Douds, the moderator that you saw here, as well as Avni Pepe, who played these games as well, giving you some tips and strategies on how they moderate and play the game. So do check those out if you're interested.
And if you have any questions, comments, feedback, or just want to say hi to us, please write in the comment sections below.
And finally, If you want to be among the first to know what's new from Meeple University, please consider subscribing to our channel and helping us to monetize it. You can click on the Meeple up in the corner in order to do that.